Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
On this episode of the Bit Tech Talk Entrepreneurship Edition, our guest is entrepreneur and founder Angela Fisher of Neufluence. Angela has over 10 years of experience building and launching influencer-driven brands for MTV, VH1, BET, and AMF Media. Neufluence is an inclusive micro-influencer software solution that provides automated tools to help brands build targeted DEI-driven micro-influencer campaigns that generate revenue from untapped consumers through diversity-based audience insights. And here's our host of the Bit Tech Talk Entrepreneurship Podcast, Natasha Robinson.
Welcome to the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk Podcast, the show where we talk to Black women and men who are engineers, innovators, educators, inventors, change makers, and entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world of technology. This podcast is where they share their experiences, stories, ideas, knowledge, and perspective on tech with the BIT community. I'm Natasha Robinson, Charlotte Chapter President of Blacks in Technology Foundation. And I'm very excited to bring to you today our guest, Angela Fisher from Neufluence. Hi, Angela. How are you?
Hi, Natasha. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you as my second guest at the Entrepreneurship Podcast. I'm really excited to learn more about yourself personally and as well as what you're doing for Neufluence. So without further ado, let's launch into the podcast. Can you share a bit about yourself, like where are you from, your background, where'd you go to school, something fun about yourself that folks wouldn't know?
Sure. So I'll kind of give you a little bit of the rundown. So first of all, I actually come from the entertainment industry, and I have 10 plus years of experience building and launching influencer-driven brands for Viacom, so specifically MTV, VH1, and I helped launch a network that's now called BET Her, where I was the head of talent. But in terms of where I'm from, that I'm actually from the Philadelphia area. And I went to a state school, actually specializing or majoring in finance. And I've always had this desire to go to move to New York and be in entertainment. So once I got my degree, I got a job at an investor relations consulting firm as an analyst. And so did that for a while. And a fun fact about me is as I was working as an analyst, while I was working as an analyst, I was managing a band. That was, I guess, my side hustle. So I literally booked a rock band at different venues in New York. And that was just kind of dipping my toe into the water of being in entertainment. And that actually helped me make the transition.
Wow, that is such a great story about your path. That's really exciting. And little known fact about myself is I was dabbling in entertainment law before I switched into technology. I did a stint at Sony, their legal department for the music side. And then I also worked a little bit in television. But so interesting to hear that you were also doing the band on the side and having a knack for sourcing talent, it sounds like. So it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. And it's nice to hear, it's nice to chat with another person from the entertainment industry. Yeah, it's quite, for me, and I don't know about yourself, but it's quite a journey, like transitioning from entertainment to tech. But all of that, all the learnings and foundations from my time at, the music networks and even running AMF Media for a while have helped make this transition pretty smooth. So, yeah.
Do you have a product or service that you would like to share with the BIT audience? Or maybe you'd like to support the BIT community and do your part in helping us with stomping the divide. Start by sponsoring one of our podcasts. Please email us at contactus@blacksintechnology.net.
Did you find that you became exposed to tech or interested in tech in those roles, or how did you make the transition?
Sure. So I spent several years at Viacom, and then towards the end of my time working with the network that's now called BET Her, I transitioned out and started my own agency, which is AMF Media. And so AMF Media helped all types of organizations and brands connect with the higher level celebrity influencers, celebrity and mid-level influencers that I had been working with. So it was a nice dovetail from my time at the networks. And so also during that time, there was the rise of the social media influencer. And so the rise in popularity of them. And that became more prevalent in the projects that we were working on. And, because that the social media influencer essentially democratized what we're calling, I guess, celebrity, there's much more of them, right? And so what became apparent to me is engaging social media influencers at scale was challenging, and you kind of need tech to do it. And so that was my first understanding of like how things were starting to evolve, because there were platforms starting to surface around sourcing social media influencers. And then one day I was invited to this talk by Harvard professor Sunil Gupta, who wrote a really good book called Driving Digital Strategy. And it's all about digital transformation and reimagining your business. And so a lot of what he talked about is how companies were becoming more, tech enabled. And that got me thinking, like, just where I was at the time and where I needed to be. So without an understanding of the tech industry, though, it was a little bit difficult. So what I did was started taking on tech clients. And one in particular is a conference called Web Summit. And so Web Summit is a huge conference in Europe. And they had hired my company to help with some of the speaker programming. And from attending that conference and being involved with it, I got to network and learn more about, the inner workings of tech. And so that began the journey of me, exploring tech as a part of my business and looking at specifically, how that could how I could digitally transform AMF Media.
That is amazing, because a lot of companies and people are in that transition right now too, trying to figure out how to improve their presence online and to, like you said, build things at scale, because things are just moving so rapidly. So hearing your journey through that is really cool. And I've noted the name of that summit. Do you know if they still have it?
Oh, yeah, they do. So it takes place in Portugal. And I think it's November this year. It's still early November. And they also host a North American conference, which is called Collision, which takes place in Toronto. And so my pivots, I guess, because I have made a couple of them, have all been somewhat strategic, in the sense that I really wanted to, before I made the jump, I wanted to learn as much as I could and just talk to people or just do it myself. So in the case of managing the band, I knew I wanted to be in entertainment, and finance got me to New York. But I needed to make sure it was really, because I was getting paid well. So I really need to make sure if I was going to make this jump that I knew what I was getting into, which helped, which managing a band really helped me to understand that. And so fast forward to, taking on tech clients, that gave me the opportunity to learn as much as I could about, how, the tech community, what the conversations are, and, who the players are.
Definitely. Good for you for doing your diligence, because that is part of the work, right? It helps to immerse yourself in, like you said, the language, and to get to know the players, especially if you haven't been operating in that space. I'm sure that helped you with your confidence level too. And I'm wondering, like, how did you come up with the name Neufluence? And can you talk more about what you were just touching upon about some of your learnings or challenges or successes that you've experienced as you've embarked on your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. So Neufluence in its early stages, which wasn't named Neufluence, it was Newco. um, so once I decided that I was going to build a product, and this was a few years ago, I just started doing it. And, it's interesting when you start building a product that you don't know code or anything, and you just start doing it. You kind of have some stops and starts. And so that's actually what happened to me. The initial idea was to build a product that was an extension of my business and allowed for more diversity in the space, so access to more diverse influencers. And then, unfortunately, I had to put it on the back burner until last year. And so last year, we all had to take a step back. And during that time, it allowed me to, reflect on the journey I had previously and how I could, resurrect it and make it more impactful. And so I started doing some more social listening and, some research around influencers in, just in various spaces and what some of the challenges were specifically from a diversity perspective. And the irony of the whole situation was that the challenges that, some influencers were facing within the industry are very similar to what, the challenges that women, people of color tend to face in corporate America. And so, so that started the journey of me creating, just really resurrecting this idea to build a space for influencers to grow their businesses, to be discovered by brands, to collaborate with brands. But then it just became a whole lot bigger, because when we're looking at our country, I mean, the US Census alone, 100% of the population growth is from multi-ethnic BIPOC segments. And, when we're looking at Gen Z and millennials, approximately, and this is according to, I believe, the Brookings Institute, approximately 45% of millennials and Gen Z are multi-ethnic BIPOC. And so when we're looking at diversity, and especially in 2021, diversity has so many layers. It's ethnicity, it's body size, it's age, it's gender, it's sexual identity, it's so much. And so what the beauty of what's happening now is that consumers have higher expectations of brands. They want brands to market to them in a way that they understand who they are. And so that's across the board. And that became, the mission of Neufluence is to really be that bridge between brands and this diverse community of micro influencers. These are influencers that are, on a smaller scale, but they have high engagement, and high engagement, like active follower base, and they're growing their businesses. And so, Neufluence, the name Neufluence actually came from a discussion I had with an influencer, because I talked to a lot of influencers prior. And, we were talking about this new age of influence. And from just playing on that concept, it evolved to Neufluence.
Calling all women game developers for the second AT&T Unlock Games Showcase. Submit your beta version game now through December 3rd and take your shot at a $100,000 grand prize. Enter at gaming.att.com/unlockgames.
So this is a question I was curious about as you're talking. How do you develop relationships with the brands that you work with? Do you have referrals? Like, how do you connect with them?
Yeah, so part of it, it's very interesting because I come from the entertainment industry, and some of my relationships are derived from there, right? And a lot of the people that I used to work with have moved on to either brands or other tech companies. So that's one aspect. And then, as you know, the entertainment industry, even though it's evolved, it still tends to be very small, right? And people keep like all the people I know, they keep tabs on me, I keep tabs on them. And when I started talking about Neufluence, they were really excited about it. And yes, referrals. Some of it was just seeing what other brands or companies are doing around inclusion and diversity, and approaching them and saying, this is my vision. This is where, this is what I want to do. Here's how I want to bring everything together. And even on the influencer side, which has just been amazing, that influencers and creators, they have just embraced this entire concept because, they want more opportunities. They want to be seen, and they want to grow their businesses, because that's essentially what being an influencer nowadays really is. It's a business. If you nurture it just like any other small business, it can be very lucrative.
And what's one thing you wish you had known before you launched Neufluence? Hindsight, they say, is always clearer than when you're in it, right?
I wish I had known how to code. No. Maybe product managing would have been good to learn. I'm kind of glad that I went into it with the level of knowledge that I had at the time, because building a startup, and anyone will tell you this, is very tricky. And it is, there is a constant learning curve, and there's a lot of moving parts. And I think that, and I kind of knew that from a very top line perspective, but when you get into it, it's definitely super interesting, super challenging, and, exciting. There's never a dull moment, right? And then you, especially if you're passionate, you're working towards your vision. And so I'm not sure if I had known the nuts and bolts of it, like how I would have felt going into it. But I'm glad to have gone into it, with the level of knowledge I had, with just a vision, right? A vision, and passion for building this product. And yeah, that has pretty much carried me. And I've literally, I feel like I could do product managing at this point. If this thing, no. Yeah. So, but I've talked so much tech, words now that even my mom has no clue what I'm saying. She's like, okay, is it, are you building it? She's like, just give me the layman's terms.
Yes, sure. I'm product legal counsel for a tech company, and my mom's like, so what are you doing? Are you going to court? Like, what does that mean? And it's interesting listening to you talk because my role is really to guide product management and engineering as they're coding and they're formulating their business plan and go to market on just the legal things they should be aware of and just putting up some guardrails for them as they go about development so that when the product does launch, they're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
And but to even get to that point of description took a while because I was like, I don't want to get too in the weeds and then bore people or confuse them. So I totally get what you're saying about just all that knowledge and then the point about coding is so real because sometimes my clients will talk to me and they'll show me code and I did end up taking a class just so I could feel like I could be a little bit more competent, when I'm advising them, but it's definitely not something easy to pick up. So it takes a lot of time and energy to practice and whatnot. But
Yeah, I
um,
have a lot of respect for developers. I in was it in elementary school? I had exposure to computer science, and I was decent at it. But at the level that it is today, it's fascinating. It's fascinating what they can do, and it's
oh yeah.
all of them. I have no desire to learn how to code. You can have it.
Oh. So you mentioned your mom, but I'm just curious, is there someone who inspires you or a bunch of folks who inspire you, whether it's family or connections you've made through Neufluence or in your career?
I'm fortunate to have a lot of positive influences in my life. And so without name checking family members, there are key family members from my mom to other relatives that have provided me with a sense of with the sensibility to navigate this world in a way that is positive, forward forward moving, and yeah, and supportive. So that I really appreciate. And then along this journey, it's been incredible. So I especially attending conferences, as I've done with AMF Media, I've amassed this very diverse network. Like there are people that I've met a year and a half ago that have become very pivotal in my life that have, challenged me on things and forced me to just kind of really kind of think out of the box, or validate why I believe so strongly in something. And then others that just keep pushing me. And so it really, I always say, there's that saying, it takes a village. And, I really feel that here with Neufluence because, again, I come from entertainment and I walked into tech with some knowledge, but I don't know everything, right? And there are a lot of moving parts. So it's nice to have mentors or people that are really rooting for me that will either make introductions or be a sounding board or again challenge me or just reinstill all of the values that I've had growing up to keep me grounded.
Totally. Definitely need the support of others, because it can be a lonely road too, especially as you mentioned, with all the different dimensions of diversity as Black woman and any other dimensions you are a part of. It's a lot. And especially like you said, with that corporate kind of background and then transitioning, and there was a certain amount of resources you had at your disposal that now you have to kind of find on your own, and there's a lot to that transition. But it's great to hear that you have a lot of positive influences in your life, so it's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. And you're right. Like this, I think any type of entrepreneurship, though, it can be a little bit of a lonely road. But it's good to, like I said, it does take a village. And even though I made that joke about my mom, not knowing, not really knowing what the heck I was talking about, but she understands the overall sentiment and tone of the journey, and is able to help guide me or help give me advice. And I think that's important.
What's up, everyone? We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk podcast. Do you or someone you know have a dope story that they want to share with our Bit audience? Blacks in Technology is seeking guests to be on our podcast. We're looking to highlight the journeys and experiences of Black women and men in the tech industry. So if you know of someone, send them our way. Shoot us an email to contact us at blacksintechnology.net, or click on the link in the show notes and fill out our form. We're looking to hear from you.
Looking forward, where do you see Neufluence in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so in the next 5 years, so one of the things so a vision that I have for Neufluence is to become essentially a hybrid platform. So it's in the influencer marketing space. So it is a marketplace where brands come to the platform to work and collaborate with a diverse network of influencers. And so the idea behind that is the influencers have the audiences that brands are looking to connect with, right? That they can't connect with through traditional means. And by it being a diverse network, the audience is typically diverse as well. And so these influencers are a conduit to what I call untapped audiences, these very valuable audiences that just haven't been marketed to in the same way and the same way as like what we call general market fashion. And so that is the initial vision, but also creating this hybrid space in the future where we're, because we're in the micro space and nano, so to speak. So when I say this, it's like influencers with followers that are anywhere from around 1,000 all the way up to about 250,000 followers. And so at the lower end, looking at a creator monetization incubator type aspect of Neufluence, where we're not only making these connections with brands through the marketplace, but we're also helping influencers as they're going through this cycle, this journey of becoming larger, to help monetize their audiences. And so it's kind of like a mix of, one of the bigger platforms out there now is like a creator IQ, a cross between creator IQ and Patreon. And that's where I see, the future of Neufluence down the line, is this place that, helps bring together the two sides of the marketplace, but also, funnels the growth of creators that are on the platform.
Very exciting stuff. I'm excited to follow your journey. No pun intended, but to see how
Thank you.
to see how that goes, and just see how it evolves. And it just sounds like you're making a lot of impact, and it's just exciting to hear that part too, that you're just changing people's lives and helping them to expand their businesses and opportunities and to grow. So that's really admirable.
Thank you. And one thing I didn't mention, or I may not have mentioned it clearly, but I have talked about like early stage influencers, but there's also, this focus on small businesses, startups that, understand the value of influencer marketing, but maybe it's, maybe it's a little bit challenging from a budgetary standpoint. So, it is kind of it is creating this level of growth for both sides. We're not just, enterprise focused, but, there's so many businesses out there, and especially businesses with diverse founders owned by people of color and the like that, that need this kind of support. And so that's, that's where we are as well. Helping these businesses, like essentially not necessarily early stage businesses, but I guess somewhat on the early stage, small businesses and early stage startups and this early stage influencer community. So it's kind of like they're growing together, entangling in these long-term relationships, which is, one of the areas where influencer marketing is going.
Okay, great. Good to know. And how can folks connect with you in Neufluence?
Sure. You can email me directly at Angela@Neufluence. So that's N as in Nancy, EUFLUENCE.com, Angela@Neufluence.com. And then you can also go to the site. It's app.neufluence.com.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and more about Neufluence.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you so much for having me. And fellow entertainment executive, former entertainment executive. So it's nice that we have that in common. So thank you so much for chatting with me. Great chatting with you as well.
Thanks. This is Natasha from Blacks in Technology. Have a good one. Bye.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.